GrokTALK.
Welcome back to Welcome back to GrokTALK, where there's babbling and no, we
That looks good on the Eye of Sauron.
the Eye of Sauron. Now I'm gonna turn Mike's mic back on. This is GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on YouTube, we are on Ustream, we are on Blip TV, I'm told, even though I've never seen it. We are on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, AC Nation Radio. There are no excuses for why you don't know what we're talking about unless you just don't care.
True.
Because Steve has done a masterful job of getting us on just about every available outlet and promoting it. Well done, Steve.
And while I do not almost ever suffer from the overwhelming of issues and the Cloward-Piven theory thing and all that stuff about what to write about and so on and so forth, making all of this work, that is exhausting. So,
it is.
Please feel free to donate to Granite Rock, and we will put that to use to help make it easier on us to bring you people like Jazz Shaw and Senator Smith and all the other great folks that we've had on the program.
Yes, and just to make sure, once again, none of it goes into our pockets. We all have regular jobs that we do every single day. Anything that comes in helps support the server so we can keep it up and running, or goes into better production quality equipment for us.
Cables go bad, things break, stuff wears out, we have to replace it.
And the rest of us put our money into showing up at events and making sure that we can bring you the best news possible from around New Hampshire.
Donate. Donate now.
We don't take money out. Steve's being subliminal here.
Yes. Donate. I'm gonna instead of having stuff like this, which I didn't even have on. Hold on. Instead of having stuff like this,
yeah, baby,
I'm gonna have stuff like donate.
Whispered on.
I'm gonna get Homer Simpson, who says donuts, and I'm gonna change it to donate. And yes, we're going to have a little fuzz because I have to start charging my battery. Anyway, so Kimberly was going to join us today. I hope she's listening. She overslept and didn't have time to take a shower and get here. It takes her an hour. So our special guest host was unable to join us. And so we'll get her on a different week.
Well, why don't you mention the phone number just in case she's inclined to dial
66 Kimberly, if you'd like to call us and be a part of the program, you can dial 603. Are you getting a pencil? I'll wait. Okay. You ready? 603-715-9689. You can call in and be a part. I don't know which line that is. I forget. I think it's line 1. But we'll find out when you call it. Okay? Make Ed Larkin flash. You can do it. Anyway, while we wait for that, or anybody else who wants to call and bump Kimberly. Punishment for being late.
What a week. So much going on.
What a week. We had a lot of things, and just pick a topic and we'll go from there.
Governor's race?
Governor's race.
Once again, it was nice to be able to hand out one of our 2 endorsements last Saturday at the CNHT picnic. That it went to Andrew Hemingway, running for New Hampshire governor here in the Granite State.
Because he's earned it the hard way. He's been here from the beginning. He's been with the Tea Parties from the first day, practically. He's run organizations like Republican Liberty Caucus New Hampshire.
And he didn't call us teabaggers.
He ran the branch of 4RG, for a Republican governor in New Hampshire. He ran the Gingrich campaign. Not quite as conservative as he is, but still very good practice. And he's run 2 successful businesses. The guy typifies up-and-coming New Hampshire, and he's a true conservative.
Yeah, and I think, Steve, you've got it right, because that really is the big controversy that is really enveloping the conservative activist base here in New Hampshire. The word got out, and again, it was us, the alternative media, that covered the event. Mike, you found the video.
Yeah.
Put it up, the longer version to show more of a context, and while... and then the story started from last Saturday.
By the way, we're still the only ones who have the video up, because MUR dropped it, and then the link to NH Journal went with it. And when I checked it yesterday, now they may have fixed it, when I checked it yesterday, they hadn't updated it, so they still don't have the 17 seconds or whatever it was the original clip was. We have that clip, we have the full version, and we have it in several places, so you can't possibly miss it. It's still there.
Yes, so if it goes dead on one way, we can resurrect it on another.
And since we have downloaded the legal, publicly available copy from iTunes University, we can actually put it on our server if for any reason iTunes University is pressured to make it go dark. But the bottom line is there are two segments. I mean, it was basically a fairly typical, boring CEO addresses students speech that went on for an hour and 11 minutes. But in the beginning where he introduced himself, Walt Havenstein bragged about his and his family's deep roots in Maryland, deep roots with the University of Maryland, and so on and so forth. And then near the end, he said, so why would a guy who's about 60, who was thinking of retiring into politics in New Hampshire, come down here to Maryland to run SAIC? He says, stand up, guys. I want to see who you are. Stand up again. That's why. You know, at BAE, I was running an exceptional company. Here, I'm running a company of exceptional people. And and my take on that is, how does that make the people at BAE feel? He clearly is saying that the people that at SAIC were a cut above anything else he'd ever worked with, and that's what he was excited about. And then he got into the politics near the end of his speech, and he said, last thing should have been the first thing. Did you guys go out and vote yesterday? So he knew it was an important election. Talked about the ability of America to change up its government every 2 years. Unlike the Brits who are stuck with their queen for 50 years.
That must have gone over well with you.
Well, that's a whole different discussion about the progressives that would like to do away with the monarchy and any other checks and balances.
Apparently, as the CEO of BAE, he wasn't very happy with the crown for some reason.
I can't imagine, because the Queen does next to nothing in politics. They are the last and final veto exercised about once every 30 years for really, really bad legislation. Otherwise, they're there to attract tourists. And the chances are that the royal family extracts more money from Americans than anything else in Britain, precisely because they're a tourist attraction. Anyway, on to the rest of it. So he goes through all of this, and he talks about how important it was. You're obviously aware that he knows it's a wave election. It was a big deal. And then he says, there's a lot of problems in this country, or at least that's what those teabaggers keep telling us, or have been telling us all summer. And he makes it clear that he thinks he's made a wisecrack. Now, there's two ways to look at this. Either he made a wisecrack and he didn't really know that teabaggers was a slur, only that it was some kind of slang, in which case he had to simply fess up and say, look, I didn't know how bad it was, I didn't mean to offend anybody, take my deepest apology for this, and it would have been over. But instead he wants to dig in and retrench and basically say, you can't demand an apology, you're not entitled to it. Well, excuse me. And Skip, you witnessed a finger-poking contest with a fellow Marine up there where, thank God, it was only fingers in each other's chests, right?
Yeah, that happened near the end of that meeting. I do not have video of that, but I do have another instance of someone standing toe-to-toe with Walt Havenstein that really wanted an apology as well.
Dennis Hamill at the CNC picnic, right? He's
well,
a Navy
that was
guy.
one.
That
this
was
is
one,
another guy.
I know.
I haven't put up the video.
I was just prefacing for people who weren't aware. Plus, you had asked for an apology on video and you didn't get it. You refused, and then we have this, which happened after. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is, and several other people have asked him to apologize. And as you said, Mike, he's dug in his heels, and he's not going to do this. Now, I'm going to say this publicly now. I've already made it clear that if Scott Brown wins the nomination, regardless of what NHGOP Chair Jennifer Horn is excoriating us to do, I'm not voting for Brown, because anybody who can vote with the Democrats 62% of the time his last year in the Senate, I'm sorry, he's not worthy of my vote. I am not a Gene Chandler Republican that I'm going to vote for anybody with an R next to the name just so that we can retain power.
And especially not vote for a Democrat with an R next to their name, like Scott Brown.
Yeah, winning is merely the preliminary. It's what you do with that power afterwards, and Scott Brown has shown us he didn't use it in a way that complements Republican principles. In this case, it does go to character. Because you're right, Mike. He could have said, all right, I didn't know, I'm sorry, and this would have been a nothing burger. But now he's dug in his heels, and I'll tell you, I'm not too sure that he didn't know. He has not convinced me that he didn't know what that meant.
I think this proves that he did, because people have said, well, I don't think he knew what it meant. I said, well, then why doesn't he just apologize?
Yeah.
If I say something, if I use a word out of context, or I try to play with a slur to make fun of the hypocritical left, and I get the wrong thing, I'm sorry, I guess I screwed it up. I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
I made a mistake.
And we do that at Granite Grok. If we mess up, we apologize. But I will tell you right now, if he is the nominee, because I value my vote, I'm not just going to go along with the herd just to play pure politics. My vote is special to me. I'm only going to give it to those people that I believe deserve it. I will not vote in the general election if Walt Havenstein is the nominee, because with this, he has shown a huge character flaw, and I'm not going along with it.
And it's a shame. There was an easy way out. Wouldn't have lost any face. Just to say I was trying to be a wise ass, and sorry I didn't know the full meaning. It's a bit like an American calling a Brit a W anchor. In America, that's
what?
W
wanker.
Anchor.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You've never seen a shirt with a big W and an anchor?
I haven't.
In America, that's considered to be a fairly light insult. In Britain, it's considered to be fairly serious. And Susan knows that, and she used it the other day, I think.
I didn't know.
And so the point is, he could have just thought teabagger was some other way of referring to the Tea Party, or he could have known it was a serious insult. The smirk suggests the latter, but he could have easily got out of it by saying it was the former and saying he didn't mean to offend anybody.
Yeah, and he does want to do away completely with the whole nonsense, in his view, of what body language was playing a role in that speech at the end.
So we got the smirk, guys. I mean,
Hey, my body language counts, so does his.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that we say, and trust me, the Democrats are watching us all the time, and there has been times when Mr. Silver Spoon from the Jersey Shore has picked up on stuff.
Yeah.
And we finally beat him to death because we refused to give in. In fact, we kind of grinned and said, hey, this could be fun.
Free blogging material. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes. You notice
Put your hands up, because we're going to start hitting you.
and you notice he hasn't come back.
No, he hasn't. This is...
I guess we have to go after Lady Shaheen a bit more.
Yeah. This is Harold Curtains, right?
Harold Pajama Boy Kirstein, Jersey Shore, yeah.
Yeah, Kirstein, yes.
Kirstein, I don't know, it's Havenstein, not Havenstein. It's
Yeah,
Kirstein,
I will
whatever.
apologize
I
for
don't know
getting
which way
the name wrong.
Please feel free to... I take it Senator Smith didn't stop by because he just came back.
Oh.
Well, hopefully we'll get keys. Maybe that'll be the good thing.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we're going to take
topic.
We're going to take 60 seconds, and then we're going to have another topic. So we will be right back after this.
Steve McDonald here. Ever notice how some Democrats get all worked up about photo ID? No, not the ID you use to access all those government services like unemployment, Social Security, welfare, and even Obamacare. I'm talking about photo ID to vote. And I don't think it's the photo part. Democrats love photos. President Obama's got a real nice one of himself with the pretty blonde Danish prime minister that he took while his wife Michelle was sitting right next to him scowling. So if it's not the photo, it must be the ID. But the only reason to object to the ID would be if you were either not who you said you were, or you didn't live where you said you lived. Which might explain why some Democrats get so upset when you ask for one. I say some Democrats because a recent poll in New Hampshire reported that almost 60% of registered Democrats and 75% of all registered voters thought voter ID was a good idea. So if it's not the New Hampshire residents, or even Democrats who oppose voter ID, it must be the kind that can't get elected unless they can get people to vote in your town who have no business voting there. I'm Steve McDonald for Granite Grok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
GrokTALK.
And we're back to Groksters Assemble. And still working on that key thing.
I like that whole thing. Groksters Assemble. That's a good name for the segment.
Yes. I don't know who came up with it first. I stole it. I know I own it because I've used it so many times it belongs to me. That's how it works. I learned that from somebody.
And that should be a rallying cry when you need a lot of coverage at a meeting, too. Groksters Assemble.
We
Event here.
Yes, there you go. So
It's like calling for the X-Men.
well, let's get away from Walt Havenstein and the governor's race. We talked about the senator's race ad nauseum at various times throughout the show.
Yep.
Let's see what else we have to talk about. I'm sure there's plenty of things. I
You-
know
you-
we said there were plenty of things. Hey, did you see this morning? I just posted it. U.S. Senator Kelly Ayotte will officiate the wedding of Ariana Brown, the daughter of Republican Senate candidate Scott Brown, on Sunday, tomorrow, according to WMUR. Ayotte endorsed Brown in late May, and the two have joked that the other is their wingman, or would be if Brown wins the GOP primary and defeats U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen in November. I led with happy couple has just taken on a new layer of nuance.
It's just beyond belief, frankly.
Well, it does tend to show you that once you get into that club, and they do refer to it as a club, once you're in, you're always a member. And just look at all of the shenanigans that are coming to light by an independent reporter by the name of Charles Johnson coming out of Mississippi. And Kelly Ayotte was a contributor to Thad Cochran, who turned around and called his... and people allied with him, called Chris Daniels, part of the KKK, a racist and all that, and basically used every single Democrat talking point against another Republican. And then they wonder why we don't care to support Republicans anymore.
No, they've got to show their principles before they wear the R, not the other way around.
You know, and it's a case where if you want us to vote for you, show us that you know our votes have value, instead of just demanding absolute lockstep.
Right. And by the way, let's just draw a contrast here, because the Senate is the most exclusive club in the world, although I think it's more like a Roach Motel. Once you get in, they won't let you out, no matter how fossilized you are. They have to carry you out in a box like Robert Byrd. But in contrast, Eric Cantor didn't enjoy those kind of protections. He spent a bunch of money, it's true, but nobody rallied around when they thought that he might be in danger in his primary, and he lost big to the Bratt. David Bratt, a real, honest-to-goodness economics professor who actually knows what it's all about.
You know what I just realized? We don't have the live stream post up.
Well, it's live streaming somewhere.
On Ustream.
It is live streaming on Granite Rock, just in places that you're not looking. That's been one of those weeks, man.
Yeah,
Just
not
like
only
last
was
week.
it...
Next week, we vow to get it right.
Yeah, and well, just like the door remained locked.
You
some
know
parts
what?
of our
It's
brains
George
were.
Bush's fault.
Oh.
Anyway.
Okay.
So,
Well, aside from the Patriot Act.
Yes, and let's kill the free marketplace to protect the free marketplace, or something like that. That rerun of the Vietnam War. We have to burn the village to the ground to save it. It's like, ay.
been one of those days, one of those weeks, one of those years, one of those decades,
Yeah,
one
well,
of those centuries so
it's
far.
not going to get much better. If you notice, I put up a data point. Business dynamism is down. We have always been known as being the freest, most dynamic economy in the world. That the whole phrase of creative destruction has been one uppermost in one of our economic principles. But now what I showed was that new startups is way, way down compared to that of 20 years ago. And that's not a good thing, folks, because without those startups, you don't get the big businesses. But it's really a net effect of seeing big government forming alliances with big businesses for crony capitalism, which the businesses use the government to squeeze out all competition. And you have a hard time unless you're in an unregulated environment, like you've mentioned in the past, Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
That you can't do these startups.
No, and any place where you're constructing something or selling stuff direct to the public, even cooking, you're so heavily regulated that it's almost impossible to start a new business. Hotels, transportation. Look at the things that are being done to Lyft and Uber in cities around the country, where there are basically web-based, app-based transportation services that don't have taxi medallions, aren't controlled by the taxi cab companies in the cities. They're not part of the cronyism, and so they must be killed. I mean, this stuff is going on all over. It happens at the town and city level, it happens at the state level, it happens at the federal level, and it does reduce dynamism. You know, the kind of businesses I've been fortunate enough to be in are not regulated. They're started by a handful of people with a bright idea. The money typically comes to the bright idea after, without too much delay. And in fact, we're the beneficiaries, believe it or not, of this current environment. Talking with our CEO recently, he said what is happening is there's a shift down market of the investment strata. The angel investors are looking for smaller and smaller startups. The venture capitalists are going where the angel investors used to go, and the big banks that used to take you public are coming in pre-public to try and go where the VCs used to go. Why? Because they're looking for value. There's no value in the market. The market's overinflated. The Fed's printing has ruined everything. There's no return on bonds. So the search for companies that might actually be growing is so intense that there's actually money sloshing around if you've got a good idea. But if you're starting up in any kind of regulated environment, you don't have a prayer.
Yeah. Speaking of prayers, that starts with P, which also starts push polls.
Paul,
and you, there's been a little bit there on Granite Grok.
I got some constituents reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm not in CD2, so I don't get the phone call for this survey that was being conducted." And it turns out it was paid for by the Lambert campaign, Gary Lambert for Congress, and it made some glorifying statements about the congressman. And as I pointed out, there are some glorifying things to point out to a man who was a Marine colonel and has served his country. He's certainly done some good things, and he should be rewarded for that, and it should be spoken out loud. And that can't be the end of it, however, because the poll continues and it begins to ask these. Infers negative situations and their effect on your opinion of his opponent. So this is a push poll. It's not the quick snap 60-second, if you heard so-and-so robbed a bank, how would you feel, better, worse, etc., and then quick, it's gone. This is a longer poll. I don't know exactly how long because I don't have a recording of it.
I was told it's nearly a half hour. The person who offered the opinion of it to me on Thursday night said that she believed that part of the ploy was to leave the paid-for buy until the very end, which is where it was, in the hope that most people wouldn't even know who had paid for it.
They were actually have I have a person who sent me an email on the record. They didn't want me to give their name, but I have the email if I need it, that said that that she asked repeatedly who's paying for this poll, and they said, we can't tell you till the end. Ooh. So you had to wait until the end of the poll. Now, before you get to the end of the poll, you are asked some questions about the opponent, Marilyn de Garcia, and there's a lot of negative light about her. They say she supported things that Obama was funding. They say that she's basically, what would you think if she was pro-amnesty, blah, 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 things like that. And I have that generalizing. But basically, they wanted to get your opinion of the other candidate based on these negative assumptions about her record or things they claim about her record. Now, I've asked the campaign to respond, and they have said that they will, but they have not. And I was out there, the Lambert campaign said it's not a push poll, that would be illegal. And then, of course, my response was, well, that's not the point. The point is that it's a push poll in spirit and in principle, even though it doesn't violate the statute. So,
and maybe he did pay a third party to go out and do what they can to influence opinion, and maybe the third party crossed the line. I don't know. I find it hard to believe that a man of such character would deliberately request this, but the content of it is undeniable. We've had reports from more than one location, and that's most unfortunate.
It is, because he is a great guy, and I do have to wonder if he really knew what they were going to do, or who knew, when, that sort of thing.
Let's just take immigration. You were at my house on Tuesday night. Marylinda spoke, and frankly, in that size setting, she did better than she even does in slightly larger ones. Absolutely answers from the heart. A bit Karen Testament-ish, except I think she's actually stands a good chance of winning her primary. But, all answers from the heart, wouldn't you say?
I would say, yeah. I mean, she spoke for a while. She answered every question. She didn't dodge anything as far as I can tell. I wasn't always paying attention every second because I was kind of moving around and getting food. And I admit that I was eating while she was talking. But I'm going to see if I have the implications that I know I posted them. So go to GrokTALK.com, see if you can find them on there. I did mention what they were, and I don't seem to be able to see them right at this second.
Right,
so.
and we've had Gary Lambert on, and we've interviewed him, and
we'll have him on again. Absolutely.
And he does a good interview, and he's very firm in his positions, and I would say he's actually firmed up some of his positions. And I wouldn't have any problem if he was the nominee. The thing is, where did this poll come from? And as I say, did the polling organization go rogue on him?
Okay, here we go. Maryland apparently supports Obamacare and giving money to companies like Solyndra. This is not direct quotes, this is paraphrasing. Favors amnesty and wants to give money to immigrants to support Obama. Missed some astronomical number of New Hampshire House votes. She did miss some votes. I went and looked. I don't have the exact number. I know that she voted on 86% of what the New Hampshire House Republican Alliance considers to be important platform votes. So she missed 14% of those.
And let us just remember there's a part-time legislature. Nobody's paid to be there. Everybody makes it on a best effort basis.
They get $100. Just for those of you who aren't aware, it's not much.
It certainly doesn't cover the cost of transportation unless you live next door.
They get per diem.
They get per diem, but the point is it's not. The point is that they're legislating because they choose to and they've been elected, not because they're paid to.
Yes.
That's what we want in our citizen legislature. We don't want them to go for the money. We want them to go for the ideas and the job itself of actually doing that task of being a legislator.
And let me just make the other point, the other side of the equation for a moment.
You have 20 seconds.
And that is that Colonel Lambert has stated very forcefully and unequivocally on more than one occasion he would not want to be paid a salary in Congress nor take a pension. He thinks
he already has a pension.
Yeah, but all right. And he's probably got some business earnings. The thing is, I think he's right. I think if you go there to earn money from it, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
And I agree that that's fine. That I not just because he's a colonel in the Marines and he's getting a pension, because he already has one, but that's a good point. The fact that he's like, well, I'm not going to take more. I'm not going to take more money, more pension, because that's the right move either way. And once again, we're not attacking him specifically. We're attacking this poll and the principle behind it. So that's this week's episode, program, whatever you want to call it, of Grok Talk. Whether you saw it or not, because I didn't put the live stream feed up. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But it'll be on podcast, and we'll be back next week with more news, more guests, and more Grok Talk.
And I'll be phoning in from California.
Okay, bye.
Grok TV.